Alassane Ouattara's forces are estimated to control as much as 80% of the Ivory Coast. To discuss the situation there, we're joined on the phone by Corinne Dufka, senior researcher in the Africa Division of Human Rights Watch. She's joining us from Dakar, Senegal. And in Washington, D.C., we're joined by Naka Lagoke, an Ivory Coast political analyst. He runs the website africandiplomacy.com. We're going to go first to Corinne Dufka. Describe what you understand is happening now on the ground, what you are most concerned about.
Yes, good day to everyone. Yes, we understand the situation is very, very tense indeed in Abidjan. This is seems to be the culmination of a 4-month-long crisis in which we have seen atrocities of the worst kind being committed in Abidjan, primarily by militias and those allied to Laurent Gbagbo. We understand the fighting is concentrated around the presidential palace as well as around the presidential residence. And around a key gendarme camp in a place called Agban, where some people think the president and his allies, the former president and his allies, may be. We were primarily concerned that as the Ouattara's forces flooded into Abidjan, that the militias allied to Gbagbo, who have over the last several months been committing awful killings and so on, primarily against those real and perceived supporters of Ouattara, would begin to conduct very massive atrocities. That appears not to have happened simply because I think the pace at which Ouattara's offensive occurred has left them either fleeing or has pushed them into their places of concentration to defend themselves. We also understand that there have been some reprisal killings in the west, which recently fell to Ouattara's forces. We yesterday denounced a massacre by Gbagbo's forces, including Liberian mercenaries, of some 40 West Africans, primarily Malians and Burkinabés. Also, our team in the border area in Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, have recently documented about 8 killings by Ouattara's forces. So a very, very tense situation indeed.
And Corinne Dufka, the reaction of the international community, given all of the attention that the popular uprisings in northern Africa have received and the repression of those authoritarian governments there, how do you assess the reaction of the international community to what is going on in the Ivory Coast?
Well, it was quite disappointing, to be honest. We felt that there wasn't enough attention given to the very serious human rights abuses, which we have characterized could very well rise to the level of crimes against humanity. The United Nations estimates some 500 people have been killed in the last 4 months. We didn't see until quite recently a strong enough reaction on the part of the Security Council, although the European Union and the United States did initiate some sanctions against Gbagbo and his people.
On Wednesday, the UN Security Council voted to impose sanctions on Gbagbo and his inner circle, as you've said. In a unanimous vote, the Council authorized travel restrictions and an asset freeze on Gbagbo, his wife, and 3 close associates. The U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Susan Rice, praised the vote.
The resolution sends a strong signal. Mr. Gbagbo and his followers should immediately reject violence and respect the will of the Ivorian people. As violence continues, Cote d'Ivoire stands at a crossroads. Mr. Gbagbo and his supporters can continue to cling to power, which will only lead to more innocent civilians being wounded and killed, and more diplomatic and economic isolation. Or Mr. Gbagbo and his followers can finally reject violence and respect the will of the Ivorian people. If this path is chosen, Ivorians can reclaim their country and rebuild a vibrant economy that was once the admiration of all of Africa.
That was the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Susan Rice, talking about Cote d'Ivoire in English, Ivory.